Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Oxford. Welcome to the Kassam Stadium. I think last time, and it might well have been these exact seats that we were here on a team news video. We were talking about Jonathan Rowe withdrawing from a squad, which feels like an absolute lifetime ago. Yannis Oftarup was preparing for his first game in charge. We all knew how that went on to go. Very different times and a very different Norwich City team. Two permanent managers on since then. Philippe Clement brings his side here, hoping to go a little bit further away from that relegation zone. Tonight, a win would take them 7 points clear, which would be seismic. But sadly, within the next minute or so, Paddy, I suspect we're going to be talking about some more injuries.
Oh, you're teasing now, Connor. Yeah. And unfortunately, not the two we probably already knew, despite Philippe trying to play the old tight-lipped straight back. Another one we didn't know about. So, yeah, and it's a key position, shall we say. So, but we won't get into trouble. And but you drew the parallel with, the shock when John Rowe wasn't in the lineup, the last time they were here, and that didn't go overly well in terms of the reaction. Let's hope it's a better reaction from this group and Philippe Clement today. Yeah,
we will bring that to you when we can, which is in about a minute or so. I'm primed with my button at the bottom to bring that team news on the bottom of our screen. I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. It's definitely a 7:45 kickoff. It is, because here is the team news, and the big Norwich City news is that there is no Vladan Kovacevic in that squad tonight. He is out with what we understand to be an injury. We don't know what injury, but he is missing tonight after picking up an injury. And that means that Norwich City are with Dan Grimshaw in goal, Fisher, McConville, Cordoba and Crizene, the back four. Sam Field makes his first Norwich City start alongside Kenny McLean. Liam Gibbs in a right-sided midfield role. We're expecting him to play on the wing tonight with Anis Ben Slimani and Oscar Schwartau completing that three behind Mo Torre. The subs bench, Molden, Stacey, Medic, Darling, right. Paris Maghoma makes the bench for the first time as a Norwich City player. Ali Ahmed, Mateus Chris-Goran and Tony Springett. No Vlad, no Papa, no Jovan. Paddy Davitt.
Indeed. Well, I mean, two of the three I think we knew, we definitely did know before that press started yesterday that they weren't going to be involved tonight. Severity of layoffs, we don't know. We've not heard some good news, to be honest, but I'm not going to prejudge that before Philippe Clement, hopefully, decides post-match is the time to address it, and I understand why, in terms of, didn't want to make it really that type of narrative. I mean, he couched it in terms of we didn't want to give Oxford any clues. I'm pretty sure Oxford would have known that neither Makama or Jallo are recovering within the space of 48, 72 hours. But I can understand why he kept his cards close to his chest. And so those two we knew, and it doesn't sound good moving forward. But as I say, we don't have a timeline, so we can't give a timeline, and we wouldn't anyway until Philippe Clement updates us. But Kovacevic, we're completely in the dark. We got here and we're told he's not in the 11. We've tried to check, and as yet, there doesn't seem to be any identity around the injury. It is an injury, though, we're led to believe, rather than anything else. All I can think of is Philippe, when I asked him yesterday, tried to dance around, the ones he wasn't going to talk about. I said, what about any of the other guys who were involved against Blackburn? He said there was one or two they were monitoring, was my take on his answer. Now, clearly, Kovacevic may be one of those. He had that issue with his hand earlier in the season. I think he's had injections in the hand. But again, I'm just, hypothesising. We don't know. And as we talk, there's the man himself. He's appeared, Philippe, that is, not Vladan. He's appeared pitch side. Looks like he's doing a media commitment. I'll have to work out who that is.
Sky Sports.
Is it Sky, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so whether maybe anybody, that should appear pretty swiftly, shouldn't it?
You guys might know before we do.
Don't go yet, unless he does say something on the Sky and you can update.
I'll play it later anyway, so don't worry.
Yeah. So we don't know, and we can't speculate on Vladan other than to say, obviously, we will get, hopefully, an update from Philippe after the game. It's a big blow. Daniel Grimshaw, first league start for the club. If I'm honest, I was at the Walsall game in a watching capacity. I didn't think he particularly pushed his claims in that game. I know it's difficult to come in cold, as it were, but to me, there looked to be a gulf between him and Kovacevic, as there should be. But tonight, he's got an opportunity. He's got to step forward. And as Philippe said yesterday, Oxford will test you. They will try and get bodies in the box. They'll try and get balls in the box. And let's hope he can withstand that, because he will be tested. But off the back of the two we probably already knew about, this is no doubt about it, this is a curveball. And, the opportunities maybe now in terms of Liam Gibbs, who probably could have gone out in January. Now he's found himself back in the starting lineup. And Oscar Suarto, who probably did merit to start off the back of his cameo at the weekends. And, of course, Mo Toure now gets the nod, no Sargent. Pre-game, check that, as in Monday, and the situation was as was. But I just think now if they've got a bit more clarity around McCarmer and how long he might be out, does something have to shift there? Because I think it's a big ask to ask Mo Toure to lead the line when he's only in the country and the league for a matter of days. So that's for the future. In the here and now, it's these lads and a rather threadbare 11 who've got to do the business tonight against an Oxford team who, let's get it straight. We're looking at it from a Norwich perspective. They've not scored here in 4 games. They were without their top scorer tonight. He was suspended against Coventry, Will Lancashire. I still think there's an opportunity for Norwich to come here and get a result. But that team line-up, those injuries, doesn't make the task any easier.
No, I would agree. If you think about it, Norwich come here tonight without their number one goalkeeper, without probably their number one central midfielder in Pella Matson, probably without their first 2 strikers, with Josh Sargent's continued absence, and obviously without Ahmed and Diallo, who were their starting wingers at Middlesbrough a couple of weeks ago. So that is where they are at in terms of it. I mean, just to touch on Ali Ahmed, Paddy, it sounds like, and probably understandably given the month that he has had, obviously the Saturday, Tuesday nature, the quick turnaround. I think he played 90 minutes on Saturday. We're probably, I know people get frustrated with it, but we're probably in the realms of minutes being managed there, aren't we, on him tonight?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought the last two or three games, I think he's shown signs of, understandably, the surprise was how smoothly he looked like he'd been playing for years in the Championship in the Norwich team. So it's probably not a surprise there's been a bit of a lull. It's a lot to process when you come in and you get thrown in the deep end. And, he may have a role here tonight in the second half. But I wasn't surprised, if I'm honest. More surprised that Liam Gibbs gets the nod. But I can see where he's going with with Ali Ahmed, because you never know. If it's a very tight game, I've already said Oxford don't seemingly score a lot of goals here. If the game starts to open up in the second half, what an option to drop in terms of his ability to get the ball, pick it up, drive and commit defenders.
Well, yeah, I mean, on that point, for me, it's interesting that it's Gibbs. I mean, we've seen Stacey come on there. I kind of wondered if he'd go in that direction just to give them a bit more pace in that forward line, particularly with Fisher behind, who is a very, very good fullback, very well-rounded fullback, but probably doesn't have that attacking edge. You just fear that right side now might be a little bit toothless with Gibbs out there. But at the same time, I can understand in terms of energy and defensive solidity and probably how Oxford are going to play tonight, which will be about getting crosses in the box. Probably an opportunity there to go quite narrow and to try and defend in that way. A lot of people question it, or just to answer this from Luke, we're expecting him to play on the right wing. Obviously, no Mate Jurasek as well. He's out for 9 to 10 weeks with that foot injury. So that's another injury to add to what is, again, a very big, long list from a Norwich City perspective. A few questions up here, Paddy, which we did speak about on the podcast, about Mateus Christgoren. Danny Wicks saying Christgoren needs a start. What's he got to do? Jack Wright saying Christgoren must surely be a load issue. Screams needing surgery given how little he is playing. To see Gibbs in front of him can't be anything other than. Obviously, Toure starting up front as well today. I mean, this is a player they spent £7 million on in the summer. Hasn't started too much. For me, it feels more of a profile point in terms of you look at the strikers that Clement has favoured since he's been here. Obviously, it was Josh Sargent, then it was Jovan McCarmer, then it was Mo Toure ahead of Christgoren, who came on and I thought played quite well, actually. It was a key header for the second goal. But they're all players that give Norwich the route to go direct and to play over teams and mix up their play a little bit. Do you have that with Christgoren? I'm not quite sure. I actually like him kind of off the striker, but he spoke, I think it was maybe after his first week, and obviously they've progressed subsequently since then, about how maybe he felt the team just didn't have quite enough balance to play with Christgoren off well, it was Josh Sargent at that stage, but off another striker. What do you make of it? And again, Dylan making the point, Christgoren has the most goals per 90 in the Championship. What is he supposed to do? What do you make of that debate?
Well, everything you've said, I think, is on the money. Yes, he was signed, and yes, they paid $7 million, but that wasn't Philippe Clement who was here then. That wasn't his profiling. That wasn't his type of striker. So what he's trying to do is try and cast the team in the way he wants to play, with profiles of players as close to what he wants. We saw what they did in the window. As you say, he goes out and he gets a striker. It wasn't Torre, it was going to be Casper Hu. He made that quite clear without naming him, but it was obviously that was the one they're looking at. Another big, physical, robust striker. It's evident for me that that's the type of profile he wants leading the line at the sharp end of the pitch. He doesn't think Matthias Quistgaarden is that. Nobody's disputing his goal record. But if he's not the manager's cup of tea, then he's not going to play, is he, ultimately? And that's what he's paid to do, make those big calls. And he's got more right than wrong. So I saw another point there in Philippe we trust, and I think you probably have to lay it at that door. I thought it was quite canny man management. He did talk up Quistgaarden's impact in that more central role after Slimani departed. And maybe that is a position that he could navigate a way into to a Clement 11. But I think the top and bottom of it is, if Philippe Clement is here last summer, they don't sign Matthias Quistgaarden. That's evident to me. So how you manage that situation moving forward, well, we'll see what all parties have to say on it. It might be one that gets to the summer and clearly he would want to have come into this club and be the main man and be playing games. And if he's not, then we'll see. But that's for the down the track. In the here and now, further evidence tonight in this lineup that he would prefer to go with a guy who was only in the building a week or so, rather than somebody who's been here for the entire duration that he's been here. So, we've checked on the fitness point because there was this fear maybe around the Sheffield United game that Quistgaarden might need some surgery around that knee-related issue. He originally did it at Coventry, then he was out for about 6 games, and then he came back and then reported a bit more pain in the same knee area. But on the checks we've made, that isn't the case. The point that was made there about are they just managing him through and then he needs surgery? No, as far as we're aware, that isn't the case, because if it was, then if you wanted to ensure he was ready for the start of the new season, you would get him under the knife now. So unless somebody wants to tell us differently, we don't feel that there is a load issue with him. It is simply a manager who, what he wants at the top end of the pitch isn't necessarily Matthias Quistgaarden.
Yeah, I think that's all totally fair. Let's bring you the Oxford 11 then. The news from a Norwich City perspective really is that Przemysław Procheta starts for them. They've got Cumming in goal, Long, Brown, Helik, Makoso, and what I would expect to be Procheta as a wing back. You've then got Brannigan, McDonnell as the two midfielders, with Pert Harris and Imankru either side of Mark Harris. Their subs bench: Ingram, Volks, Konak, Romeni, Ruskin, Spencer, Mills, Davis, and Jinwoo. That is the way that Oxford line up tonight. So they're going with what we expect to be a 3 at the back, with Przemysław Procheta potentially as a left wing back. But we'll see how that shapes up, because you never quite know how a shape looks until we get there. Paddy, we've spoken a lot about injuries tonight. We touched upon some of those players that have opportunities. The one change maybe, or the couple of changes that aren't enforced due to fitness or injury, and we'll reiterate for maybe anyone who's joined us late.
On the bench as well.
Yeah, we'll come to that. He's no Vladan Kovacevic. He is missing with an injury, and Ali Ahmed drops to the bench just in terms of managing his minutes and his load on that one. But the one change in midfield, which I don't think either of us was surprised at, I think we called this actually on the journey up, was Sam Field coming in for Jacob Wright. You think about the type of game it's going to be tonight. You look at the pitch, and particularly that middle strip of it not being the best. I don't think it's as bad and quiet as some we've seen this season, shouting at QPR and Preston there. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be a battle. There's going to be lots of balls in the box. That probably does lend itself more to a game that is suited to Sam Field than Jacob Wright tonight.
Yeah, I think so. I think because, we put them up earlier on I think the channels, the quotes from Matt Bloomfield, the Oxford manager, and you can understand why they're in a bit of a dire situation. 4 points out of the bottom 3, or 4 points adrift, and not scoring goals. So they want to make it a fight. They want to make it a battle. They want to make it a siege mentality. And he was talking about the players, the staff, and the fan base. He wants the fan base really to dig them in, because they've obviously gone to Coventry Saturday. They've got a fantastic point in the circumstances, but they probably had to put a lot of work in off the ball to get that point, looking at the stats. So I think if it is a battle type of game, that to me is better suited to Sam Field, obviously stating the obvious, instead of Jacob Wright, who I don't think, for me, in the last 2 games when he's had an opportunity to stake a real big claim in that 6 role, he hasn't taken it. And, he will come again because he's a very good young footballer. But in the here and now, if this is going to be a game where you need to roll your sleeves up, and as Samfield showed in that cameo on Saturday, you know, when it could have got a bit tense, even at 2-0, just his experience to break up the play. He took a yellow card for a pretty robust challenge, I think it's safe to say, and that's what he will bring. You know, he will, alongside McLean, I think he'll at least give them that anchor when there's other areas of the team where you are a bit concerned out will go tonight. I think there's a reassurance to see them two in the middle of the park, and if they can give Norwich that platform, solidity-wise, then hopefully that can allow the four in front of them to do something and try and probe for some vulnerability against what is a very well-drilled Oxford lineup. As I think Philippe said, I think expected goals against, they're in the top 3 or 4, aren't they, since Bloomfield came in terms of record.
It's been scoring goals, hasn't it? Haven't scored 4 here.
But defensively, they're pretty solid. So,
well, held Coventry at the weekend.
Absolutely, yeah.
Prior to this little blip, sorry to remind you, Paddy, been scoring goals for fun, really.
No. Yeah, as I said, that was a very good point in the circumstances. So, yeah, but for me, Field was always going to be, I think, nailed on for this game, really, and Schwartau as well, off the back of what he did at the weekend. I think that had to happen, really, particularly when, you know, we got a clear sense that Jallo wasn't going to be in the mix, and no Jurasek as well. So, yeah, as we look down now, the keepers are out, so it's a big night.
Sensei Reyes down there, I haven't seen him for a while.
Yeah. The way this is going, Declan Rudd might need to get a game.
Let's hope not. Paris Saint-Macomer on the bench, you said about it, and first, citing anyone has had of him since he joined Norwich. Philippe Clement obviously had a big injury last year, didn't he? And Philippe Clement has spoken about the fact he was going to need a little bit of time to get up to speed. I'm intrigued to see if that is being kind of accelerated off the back of, obviously, all of that injury news that we've spoken about. But it'd be interesting to see him if he gets on the pitch tonight, where he gets on the pitch, and probably what the game state is at the point that he does get on the pitch. But even that is a good sign that he's taking steps in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of hinted that, didn't he, last week, Philippe, when he said he's ahead of maybe the timeline they'd mapped out. I mean, we thought probably West Brom this weekend coming now in the 4th round of the Cup would be an ideal opportunity, and that might prove to be the case. But I think the reality is, if you haven't got the cattle, as Dubai just whacked in there, 12 senior players missing, he's probably not in the mix tonight, but needs must, and opportunities arise as a result. So if he did get on the pitch, you know, moving forward, I think rather than tonight, I mean, that's a good, interesting aside. Funny enough, it was here that we saw the first sight of a Manqua Forsen, and I think everybody, in what was a very bad day overall in terms of the result on the opening day last season, but I think we all left thinking, well, they've got a player there in a Manqua Forsen, just that little cameo, and he's obviously had his injury issues, like quite a few subsequently, but yeah, maybe tonight, if he gets on the pitch and he shows 1 or 2 glimpses, who knows, but yeah, I think before him I'd be looking for Ahmed, and I'd be looking for Chris Gordon if you're looking to sort of change how this game might be unfolding as we move into the second half. Yeah,
agreed. We've got some interesting, an interesting perspective, because as quite famous at Oxford, free stands. We can actually see our car, Paddy, but if there's any rogue shooting, I think you fear for our windscreen a little bit.
Yeah, no, sorry, I was just distracted there. I was going to ask somebody if we had an update on Kovakovic, but we'll, because I've just seen here somebody said about Chris Gorham's tweeted.
Well, I'll find it, but I'm sure Chris is correct, as he tends to be. But yeah, speaking about our car,
yeah.
Here you go. Clement has just told TV interviews pitch side. Vlad felt something in his quad yesterday. We made a scan today, and it doesn't look too serious. So there we go.
Good. Yeah. Okay, good. Quad, yeah, but the quad is Papa Jallo, isn't it? So, as in the first time round, maybe not the second time round, but NSC had a quad as well. They were up for quite a while, weren't they? So, you know, in Philippe we trust. So, I suppose the good thing is this weekend is the cup game, isn't it? So it's 10 days, is it, before? Yeah, another 10 days. Yeah. So yeah, let's hope that is the case then. But okay, when you started reading that tweet, I was just waiting for that, and he's out for a long time. So yeah, small mercies, we'll take that, and we'll definitely get an update from Mr. Clement post match.
Yeah, someone's injury being not too serious feels like a celebratory moment.
10 days, we'll take 10 days.
10 days would be fantastic for any sort of quad issue. How do you see it going tonight, Paddy? It's interestingly poised now off the back of that team news.
Yeah. I'm trying to process it now. So I think we came in knowing realistically it was no Macabre, no Jallo. So it's just the keeper. That's the big imponderable really in terms of the result. You know, if two things. If he can come in and he's as well protected as Kovacevic himself was recently with Cordoba and McConville in front of him, and Kruzeni and Kellen Fisher, and he doesn't have too much work to do then, because Oxford have been so struggling to score goals here, especially last 4 games, not a goal, then you still think Norwich can get something. I just hope that, you know, he does step up, and if he is required, he is up to the mark, and if so, I don't know, it's a hard one tonight, Connor. I just think their desperation as well, you got to throw that into the mix. They need to get something going, they need wins to claw themselves clear, so I'm going to sit on the fence and say a draw, mate.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Norwich to edge it 2-1, but I think it's going to be tight and difficult and physical here tonight. And I could certainly, but just to be interesting and to be different.
Almost as if I saw Nick's message there.
There you go. Yeah, I would agree. I've got a hell of a stat about Oxford, but I'm not going to say it because of the along come Norwich spell that may well cast. So we will leave it. We will leave it there. Pinkin.com, the place to go. Paddy will, I think, after your post-match interview is going to be about injuries at this rate. So you'll be able to check that out later on with Philippe Clement. And we'll have all the analysis and reaction to this evening's game over there as well. And hopefully, in the meantime, we can keep ourselves fit and healthy up here in the press box. Full away end tonight, which is fantastic in midweek. Not the worst trip in the world, mind. Let's hope those guys are rewarded with another fantastic result for Philippe Clement's resurgent Norwich. See you soon. Thanks for watching.